welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rody John, and today we speak to Carolina Teague. We talk all about her multiple jobs in the sports world, women in sports, and the radio world. You can catch Carolina Teague on October 22nd as she makes her debut at Wrestle Rave down in Houston, Texas. Also, while you're doing all that, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. You get even more information about our guest. You get fun facts, and you get to find out what's going on with your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is Carolina Teague. To welcome to the show, Carolina Teague. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I just got back from Vegas. I had a really great time and just got to relax, watch the fight, and, have a lot of fun with my friends and family.
That's amazing. How was Vegas?
It was actually more than what I anticipated. I actually stayed in a haunted hotel. Unbeknownst to me, there was a ghost in there, and, just everything I expected and more. It was fun.
Which hotel? I didn't know there was. I imagine there was haunted ones out there. I just never actually looked into it.
I had no clue I was staying at a haunted hotel. It kind of was just thrust upon me. I was staying at the Horseshoe in Valley, just connected to the Paris. And, we stayed at the Paris, which is near the Bellagio and Caesars and the Mirage, all these really nice, expensive hotels. And I was losing money at the Paris. And I decided to stay at the Horseshoe, which is connected to the Paris. And the Horseshoe was relatively cheaper than the Paris was, which is wild because we were in a pretty pricey spot. I had no clue why. The reason why we stayed there is because I started winning money at the Horseshoe, and it was just easier for me to go to the blackjack tables. So we stayed there, and of course, sure enough, paranormal things started happening to myself and multiple guests there. At the event, there was fire alarms being pulled and elevators taking us to floors we didn't ask to be taken to, and elevators opening for us for no reason. And come to find out that the Horseshoe used to be the old MGM Grand, and it is the second biggest hotel fire in U.S. history, and over 85 people died. And the ghost pulled the fire alarms just to, kind of warn other patrons of the hotel that they might suffer the same fate that they did. So the fire alarms were being pulled on our floor, and it was pretty creepy, but it was fun.
Well, that city has so much history as it is that, it made sense once you said a haunted hotel, but I just never, put it together that, oh, shit, some of them may actually be haunted. And because of, all the history, all the mob connection, and, I know I talked to somebody who worked at a hotel. I forget which one it was. It was one of the bigger ones, and he's worked there for over 20 years. And I was like, "You've seen everything." He's like, "I think I've seen everything except for a woman giving birth." And I was like, "Well, the day is young." So.
Yeah, it was something I never thought of until it happened. I've actually been to hotels before, trying to go ghost hunting. I've never seen anything, never felt anything. And this one was just when you least expect it, that's when all the crazy stuff happened. So, but it was a fun trip, nonetheless. That was good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you went there for sports, but I want to go the complete other way with it. What is your earliest memory of sports?
My earliest memory of sports? Oh, that's a really great question. I honestly cannot I guess my earliest memory of sports is my dad teaching me how to play baseball. My dad was huge on baseball. My dad used to teach me how to play baseball in the front yard. And I'm a pretty good hitter, naturally, because I'm a lefty. And I used to practice all the time with my dad in the front yard. So I love baseball. I love hitting. I'm not as much as into baseball as I used to be, but some of the best memories watching sports with my dad and being a young girl. I remember being a toddler probably, and some of the best memories were being in Chicago and watching the fights with my uncles and my aunts, and everybody's yelling at the TV. It was a lot of good times, and then watching the Bulls in the 90s was always a treat. So those are my earliest memories, and they were fun ones.
Well, when did you make the decision that covering sports and being in broadcasting was where you wanted to be at?
So, I, always had it in the back of my mind that my grandmother was a radio host, and she was number one for 32 years in the Valley of South Texas. She was known as the voice of McAllen, and
Wow.
she would bring me on to the radio station early in the morning and she would record demos and stuff, and she would let me on air sometimes. And I was probably about 5 or 6. I was just a little girl, and I remember I would tell her, Grandma, I want to do radio for a living. And she said, there's no money in radio. Don't go down this path. And she's not lying, there isn't. But I, kind of never wanted to pursue it because I knew that my grandma didn't have money and I wanted some money and I needed to get some money because I was from the south side of Chicago and I grew up pretty poor. So I ended up getting a career in banking, graduating with my degree in business, and life kind of just happened, went in that direction. I became a teen mom, all that good stuff. And, but I always watched ESPN religiously, and I would always argue with people on social media, especially men, about football. And I'd always get the best of them because they had absolutely no clue what they were talking about. And one day I decided to go on social media. I was stalking somebody's page, and there was a competition to try out for Rock the Mic for ESPN San Antonio. And the winner, you get on airtime. So I was like, I could do this competition. I love radio. I listen to radio all the time. I like listening to the little nuances that people speak about when they're on air. And there's certain things about people's voices that I enjoy. And I also know my sports because I've been keeping up with them very much so like anybody else would that is into sports. And so I beat over 150 people and won that spot.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. After that, it kind of just steamrolled from there, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, my goal early on in life was to also get in radio, and I had so many different counselors and tell me, well, there's no money in that, so maybe decide on doing something else. And I was like, well, I'll show you. And, I did the internship. I was almost part of a radio station, but as they do, they switched formats and they let that guy go. And so I no longer had access to working at a radio station. And so, and then that was around the time podcasting kind of started and internet radio. So, I dabbled in that for the longest time while I had day jobs. And, I'm still having a day job and dabbling in podcasts now. So it's crazy how the world works like that and how much people they tell you not to do something because, in their mind, they're like, well, you're not going to make any money. But in your mind, you're like, well, yeah, but that's my passion. Like, why, just because you think I'm not going to make any money out of it doesn't mean I shouldn't at least try it.
Exactly. And, what I learned from my journey is, my grandma is right. There is no money in radio,
right.
But it is my passion. And just like my grandmother's, it was her passion. It's my passion, and I think it runs in our family that it might be our passion. But I definitely, see their side, and there is no money in radio, and that's the beauty of podcasting and internet radio is that we're now in a society where we can make names for ourselves without having radio behind us, and we can actually get credentials for media and all the things that come with access of being on radio via social media now. So I like this new era and the direction everybody's going in because it gives people opportunities that normally wouldn't have opportunities. And as you know, in your experience, the formats change, program directors get let go, people change directions all the time. So it's just best to make your own name for yourself and do podcasting and do it that way. So, I say more power to you for doing that.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. It's funny they let the guy go. Well, it was a talk station, and then they were flipping over to sports talk. And he was the only one who actually had MMA connections. But it was like 2008 where MMA was still like, to some people, human cockfighting. So, like, why would they want that on their show? But now, looking forward, UFC and MMA got so huge that, I guess they wouldn't have even seen it. And they missed out on having this guy on there. And now I think he still has a podcast with Frank Mir. So I would say he's doing pretty well for himself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I read that you're a member of the Galvanized Life, which is a group for women in sports. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in Galvanized Life, I think it was in 2016 or 2017. So I had did the Rock the Mic, and there was 6 winners total. And out of all 6 winners, I was the only woman. And out of all 6 winners, I was the only one who never got a show and who never got to attend the Super Bowl. And I was always wondering, why can't I do the things that everybody else does? Like, I couldn't understand it. And then I started doing my research and how successful or how difficult it is for women to, find a spot in this world. And I fell upon an article by Laura Oakman, and she had an article about her company called Galvanize, and she had said in her interview that every time she speaks to a woman in sports, they never get to cover professional teams. They always get the scraps. It's always the men that get to cover the professional teams, and the women kind of get to, high school or, things like that. So what she provided was an opportunity to interview somebody at a professional level. So for the very first time, I joined Galvanize and paid the membership fees, went to go cover the Buffalo Bills. That was fun. I've covered the Chicago Bears, and I was recently on their podcast at Super Bowl at Radio Row. So I always love running into those girls. Yeah, I love running into those girls and just, having those relationships with them. They're amazing women, and they're very, very fantastic at what they do. And I'm proud to say I'm part of that alumni, and I love running into them, at events.
So the presence of women in sports is becoming much larger, which I love so much, because we need more of an even playing field, and we need everybody, no matter what your background or gender, whatever. We need more voices, and we need more opinions when it does come to sports. What do you think that I guess society and the media in general can do to put more women in the spotlight?
Well, I think just giving people fair opportunities. And I say that with a whole heart, because I've been told directly by program directors in radio that, my ratings are there, my followings are there, my following's there, my ratings are there, ratings are high when I go up. I've been told, and, my following is pretty big, and I have the 3rd biggest following in the city, but I am the wrong gender, and I am the wrong color. And I've been told that directly. And it's heartbreaking. It's humiliating, especially for somebody who has a passion to do this stuff, because you have all this passion, you put in all this hard work, and you get to that point where you can finally make it, and they tell you, you're the wrong demographic. You should go try Telemundo. You should go try Tejano Music. That's where you belong. Because it's easy to write people off that look like me into that category. But I don't speak Spanish. I speak English. That's what I do. So to be typecasted is not something that I'm here to do. I think what it is people should just, they say they don't see color or they don't see race, but then they tell you that it is because of color and race. And then when you try to say something about it and say that you're not treating me equally, they act like it's a figment of our imagination when I know otherwise. So I think what people need to do is, look at what they bring to the table, people bring to the table, and look at how hard they work and look at how passionate they are, rather than the demographic that they match.
I wholeheartedly agree. And the fact that people have the balls to say that to your face is genuinely awful, because, again, if they're saying that to your face, I can't even imagine what they're saying behind your back. And the fact that even in 2023 that we still have people that have that thought process is genuinely ridiculous, and so far the other way of where we need to be going, that I apologize on everybody else's behalf, because of the fact that should never happen to anybody.
You don't have to apologize, because it's not your fault, right?